There are many, many things in the great big universe that are worth giving a closer look at, and one of those things seems to be, and definitely is, heavenly album covers. Album covers are very interesting, but within your average album cover, there are these things called inner sleeves, and inner sleeves can be very interesting also. And right now we are going to look at a few albums, and we are going to look at the inner sleeves which are inside those albums. Let's start right now. First, we start with a classic rock album by The Who, Quadrophenia. The cover is great, but let's look inside at the inner sleeves. There are two of them because this is a double album. This inner sleeve is a little bit pale. It's off-white. It looks like it's been aging for years. It's a little yellow, and but it still has sharp corners. There's a fold, probably where it went into the outer sleeve. And the second inner sleeve from Quadrophenia is this one. It has a major fold on the corner from where it was slipped into the outer sleeve of the record. Next up, we have an album and an inner sleeve from the album 2013 by Carl Reiner and Mel Brooks. They are comedians, and this is a real funny album. And the inner sleeve from 2013 looks like this. The corners are intact. There are no folds in the inner sleeve. There is some promotional advertisements for other Warner Reprise records. I'm not sure what this photograph is. It's very interesting. Next up is the inner sleeve from a Cliff Richard album. This is Cliff Richard, and his group is normally the Shadows. Let's look at the inner sleeve of this album. The inner sleeve for that album, or this album, is a plastic inner sleeve. It's clear, you can see my hand through it, and it provides protection for this album. There are some folds in the corners where the record was placed inside the outer sleeve, and this is the inner sleeve for the Cliff Richard and the Shadows album. Next up is an album and inner sleeve from Andy Mackay. I believe Andy Mackay played saxophone for Roxy Music, and this is mostly an instrumental album. Let's look at the inner sleeve from this album. This inner sleeve looks like it's been around a while. It's very much yellowed. It's almost turned brown on the edges, and this is not only a paper sleeve, but it has a plastic inner coating, so when you pull the record out, it's very safe. This has a warning down here about plastic bags being dangerous. You don't want to put your head inside this. And both sides are very aged, although the corners are very sharp here. And so this is a very worthwhile inner sleeve. Next up is an album and inner sleeve by world-famous pop performer Elton John, and the inner sleeves here are from his double album Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, which is a fold-out album, and the inner sleeves look like this. There are two inner sleeves that cover two separate vinyl album LPs. And here we have the first inner sleeve. It's very much folded at the corners. There's a die cut open area to look at the label here. And this inner sleeve has aged a little bit, but it's still in pretty good condition. And the folds at the corners are a little bit troublesome, but all in all, it's a good inner sleeve. Let's look at the other inner sleeve from Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. This inner sleeve has a tear or a rip up here. Again, the corners are a little bit folded up. This has some discoloration here, and there's a little smudge here. But again, there's a cutout here where you can look at the record label and read the tracks, see what you're playing. And this other side of this Elton John vinyl LP is very marked up. There's some discolorations, and the folds are quite apparent. Next up is a great album and inner sleeve by Rocket Kirshner, and there's Rocket Kirshner. Rocket Kirshner is really great. This is an amazing album. It's kind of like the NRBQ. It's very high energy rock and roll and punk, and I highly recommend Rocket Kirshner. I think you can find his stuff on YouTube and other places. And it's a very plain but effective album cover. There's Rocket Kirshner right there. Let's look at the inner sleeves of this album. When I bought this album, it had the record for the actual album, and it had a bonus album with it. And here's one of the vinyl records. The inner sleeve has been aged, and it cracked, and it kind of is tearing apart, but it's still keeping the record safe inside. It's very yellowed. There's some markings, and it's all in all, I would give this sleeve a 7, maybe a 6 out of 10. This is the actual album that goes in the outer sleeve. It's in fine condition. There are some very light folds here, and I would give this sleeve a 8 out of 10. It's very nice. This album came with an insert. I'm not sure what it even refers to, but it's some sort of writing by Rocket Kirshner, and it's nice to have. It folds up. Next up is an album by Amon Düül. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's a double album, and it's called Dance of the Lemmings, Amon Düül 2, and there's the album cover. It's a double album. Very impressive in the gatefold, and it's a very groovy album. It's a lot of groovy jam kind of things going on here, and space rock. It's very nice. Let's look at the inner sleeves from both of the vinyl records inside here. Now, this is almost a perfect record sleeve. It's very much yellowed on the outside. Some big folds here, but still it's crisp, it's intact. You've got the die cut area where you can see the record label, and there's nothing wrong with this inner sleeve. Let's look at the other one. This one's a little bit more worn, yellowish around the edges, but still the circle die cut in the middle is crisp and clean. Both sides are good. This inner sleeve is probably a 6 out of 10. And our very last inner sleeve right now is related to this album, which is called Cruisin' 1965. It's some sort of compilation of songs from 1965, and the actual outer sleeve is in decent shape. It has some ring wear around there, and but let's look at the inner sleeve. And this is almost a perfect inner sleeve. It's got the die cut. This particular example has round corners for putting in the outer sleeve easier. This will slip right down into your outer sleeve, and there's no yellowing, no folds. The sides are very aligned, and it's just a perfect sleeve. You can even take the record out and examine it that way. It has good strength, and it seems to work very well for this particular vinyl LP. So that's our look at the inner sleeve. Just a few records and just a few inner sleeves.